Welcome to Warhammer Warscroll Review. In this kit compare, we're going to be taking a look at two Flesh Eater Court units, the Crypt Flayers and the Crypt Horrors.
Warscroll Review. Kit compare.
Crypt Horrors and Crypt Flayers come out of the same box. Swap out the model's arms and voila, you got yourself one or the other. In this video, we will review, compare, and contrast each Warscroll to save you money. Crypt Horrors or Crypt Flayers? Which should you build? The two Warscroll stat wheels are pretty similar with one main difference. While the Horrors have a respectable 7 inches, the Flayers have a 12-inch flying movement. Defensively is where they are the same. 4 wounds, 5 up save, and a bravery of 10. Crypt Horrors do come with a special ability that allows each Crypt Horror to heal back 1 wound in each of their hero phases. Both models are just there to punch people, so their melee weapon is pretty important. They both hit on 4s and wound on 3s. The Flayers enjoy 4 attacks and Ren 1, while the Horrors come with 3 attacks and damage 2. In the past, I have undervalued that damage 2 on the Horrors as they are lacking Rend, but with the new rules for Mystic Shield, 2+ armor saves will be exceedingly rare. Even 3+ armor saves will be harder to come by. For this reason, I'll have to give it to the Horrors' clubs and septic talons. Rend and the extra attack are nice, but if one Horror makes its attack through, the Flayers would have to make 2 through. If Horrors got 2, Flayers would need all their attacks to land to keep up. This math may sound obvious, but it puts into perspective how much of a difference that 2 damage is. Now, neither of them rely solely on their weapon's inbuilt stats. Each Warscroll has a special rule to enhance their weapon. Both activate on a 6 to wound. The Crypt Horrors' weapons deal 3 damage when their ability triggers, while the Flayers deal a mortal wound instead of their normal damage. Going back to the previous line of thinking we had, that means if one Horror scores a 6 and it gets through, it is basically out damaging anything one Flayer is likely to bring to the table in melee. The mortal wound is nice, but only situationally better than the Horror's 3 damage. The Crypt Horrors' melee aptitude doesn't stop there. When they are within 15 inches of an Aberrant Ghoul King, they get to reroll hit rolls. This more or less makes up for the Flayer's extra attack, skewing the melee contest even further in the Horror's favor. So Flayers are just outright doing less damage than the Horrors? Not necessarily. We have one more ability to mention. The Crypt Flayer comes with an interesting ranged weapon, their fearsome battle cry. This is a 10-inch weapon that has the death player roll a die, and add 1 to the result. If the total is higher than the target's bravery, it deals an amount of mortal wounds equal to the difference. So the maximum bravery this weapon can harm is bravery 6, and even then, you only have about a 16% chance of dealing a mortal wound to them. Not so fearsome. This weapon will do a bit of damage to light infantry like Free Guild handgunners and grots, but will be all but useless against Seraphon, demons, and other death units. Both units cost 160 points, starting units at 3 and maxed out at units at 12. Either can be battleline if you choose their respective courtier as the general. So for the Horrors, this is a Crypt Haunter courtier, and for the Flayers, the Crypt Infernal courtier. Units of 6 or more Horrors will provide quite a solid tar pit between their wound pool and regeneration ability, while 3 Flayers will provide more of a harassing role. Which leads us to the next section, synergies with other special rules. Both units are obviously part of the Flesh Eater Court, so they fit in there, the Death Grand Alliance, as well as allies to any of the legions in Nagash. In any of the factions, the Deathless save will prove helpful. But more specifically, in a Flesh Eater Court's army, your Crypt guys can benefit from delusions. Most of the options give a slight benefit in very niche situations. It seems as though Crusading Army is the one you'll get the most mileage out of, regardless of your opponent's army. This trait will allow the models to reroll run and charge rolls. Great for getting those Horrors and Flayers into combat faster. As far as Flesh Eater command traits and artifacts that pair well with the Crypt units go, there aren't many standouts. The Grim Garland offers a -2 bravery aura around the bearer. This would actually come in handy with the Crypt Flayers quite nicely, but requires the character to be right in the opponent's face. Having this debuff on the enemy is great for Flayer's fearsome battle cry, but it will still have the same disadvantages. Some armies just outright ignore this ability due to their bravery of 10. You can start loading more points into decreasing the enemy's bravery, but is somewhat costly for Flesh Eater armies. They could include Morghast and Ravanax Gnashing Jaws, but Morghast are expensive and the Jaws cast on an 8, which is somewhat hard to achieve even if you've decked your general out with the Dark Wizardry command trait. Both the Horrors and the Flayers can regenerate models they have lost through the game. Each of their respective Crypt Courtier will have you roll 6 dice, and for each 5 up, you get a model back to the unit. And don't forget the Varghulf Courtier does the same thing and works on either unit. This regeneration ability actually makes both Warscrolls fairly durable. Statistically, you'll be regaining 2 models for each of your courtiers. Each of the Aberrant Ghoul King's versions come with a unique spell, and each of the spells will be helpful for either Flayers or Horrors. One thing to remember with each of these versions of the Ghoul King is that they all grant reroll to hits on the Crypt Horrors, due to their Chosen of the King special rule. So they are getting the spell's buff along with this. If you took your Ghoul King on foot, it has the Black Hunger spell. This one casts on a 5 and adds an attack to the targeted unit. If you mount your Ghoul King atop a zombie dragon, they will have the Feeding Frenzy spell. This spell would let the target reroll all wound rolls. And if you mounted the Ghoul King on a Terrorgeist, it has the Unholy Vitality spell. This one gives the target a 5+ save after the save, making your big boys even more durable. So actually all 3 of these spells are solid buffs for either Horrors or Flayers. Personally, I'd like most of these on the Horrors a bit more. Rerolling to hit and wound, or getting 4 attacks each would be pretty powerful and enhance the Horrors a bit more than the Flayers. As I said before, each attack from a Crypt Horror is likely to do more damage than 1 attack from a Flayer, so either of the offensive spells should benefit the Horrors more. The defensive spell really is good on either Crypt model. Aside from spells, the Ghoul Kings each have unique command abilities, but the King atop Terrorgeist is the only one related to our comparison. The ability summons either a unit of Horrors or a unit of Flayers, so basically the whole point of this video. In this specific case, either will reinforce your ranks, but they leave you with a 9-inch gap to cover if you want to make the charge in. When I summon something, I'd like to do something that turn with it, in case it is killed in the following turn. The bright side of summoning the Crypt Flayers is being able to use the ranged weapon on the turn they drop. But as stated before, you'll need some negative bravery auras or hot rolling to deal any damage. With rerolls from the Crusading Army Delusion, 9 inches is a bit more doable, but still not reliable. Now, on to battalions. There are quite a few that include either the Crypt Horrors or Flayers. Each unit has a battalion based around 2 or 3 units of Flayers or Horrors and their appropriate courtier. The attendants at court, the Crypt Horrors battalion, allows them to always reroll to hit rolls instead of relying on a nearby Ghoul King. In addition, if the included courtier is within 10 inches of your general, you gain an extra command point. And yes, you can make the courtier the general, as he'd always be within 10 inches of himself. This is a neat ability, but this battalion is fairly pricey. I mean, you could potentially just start with 3 command points instead of 1, and keep the Horrors near the Ghoul King, which was probably already the plan. The Dead Watch, the Crypt Flayers' unique battalion, allows them to pile in an attack in the hero phase. A simple but effective ability. Abilities like this that take place in the hero phase are nice, but they tend to trigger a bit less than you'd hope, as it requires the Flayers or their target to survive at least 1 round of combat before using this one. Like the attendants at court, this one is fairly expensive, but if you're taking heavy Flayers already, this is a great addition. The other battalions have okay abilities, but don't really give the Horrors nor the Flayers anything that exciting. So, that's all their uses, but how do they actually compare to one another? Let's break it down point for point. Crypt Horrors deal 2 to 3 damage with each of their attacks, while Crypt Flayers have Rend 1 and an extra attack. Crypt Horrors have abilities to mitigate their accuracy, while the Crypt Flayers are faster. Crypt Horrors are slightly more durable due to their regeneration. Crypt Flayers have a chance, albeit small, to deal mortal wounds. The winner of this kit compare with a 4 out of 5 are the Crypt Horrors. Their weapons and innate abilities tip the scale in their favor. The Flayers receive a 3 out of 5 because their mortal wounds ability is too unreliable. Which unit do you prefer? Which Warscrolls would you like to see compared or reviewed? Leave your thoughts, suggestions, and questions in the comments below, and thanks for watching.